Legends of Runeterra is a collectible card game from the developer Riot Games, based on their MOBA League of Legends. Having officially released in 2020, it now has had a few years to settle itself in the card game scene, and we're going to see how it stands up today and if it's worth checking out. So let's start off with the gameplay. Even though visually a lot of people compare Legends of Runeterra to Hearthstone, its mechanics are much more closer to Magic the Gathering. You can interact with your opponent on their turn, although turns themselves work a little bit differently in Runeterra. Each turn has a you go, I go kind of system where both players can spend mana playing cards until you both pass and the turn ends. The key difference between turns is one player will be the attacker and the other player will be the defender. When your minions attack, they always go face, unless of course your opponent decides to block them with minions of their own. Although I've never been a fan of the blocking mechanic, it feels like it's done as well as it can be in Legends of Runeterra, mainly because your minions don't heal back up to full every turn, meaning even if you block something big, you can wear its health down over time. In terms of deck building, it also has similarities to Magic. You can use up to 2 of the regions, which are similar to colours, in a deck and use champions and cards from them to build out your deck whilst trying to get the most out of each region. This is truly one of the biggest strengths of the game, as the roster of champions available to you are incredibly varied and each one feels unique to play, as well as having strong ties gameplay wise to their League of Legends counterparts. Garen is a bruiser with strong sustain, whilst Echo is slippery and can make some brain melting plays if left to his own devices. I do feel it's important to cover some of the negatives in regards to gameplay as well. The single biggest one is the double-edged sword that is variety. Each faction, and then champions within those factions, are so unique it truly is a task in itself to learn and remember all of the keywords and mechanics the game has, and there are a lot. It will definitely take you a while to get comfortable with knowing what your opponent is capable of just from seeing the champion choice at the start of the game. Legends of Runeterra's biggest strength in the online card game scene is its cost to play. This game has consistently been at the top of the list of free-to-play friendly card games, with the majority of players I've spoken to saying they only ever spend money on cosmetics, but they never have to spend it on the cards themselves. The game basically helps this by offering you a mini battle pass style leveling system for each faction in the game that gives you rewards as you play. This allows you to quickly gather new cards for a faction and expand your collection. The great thing about this is Legends of Runeterra does not shackle you with having to play the faction itself to level the passes, but lets you level them regardless of which deck you play. Even after just an hour of playing, you'll have a few levels done and your first faction with some more cards earned. This really does feel like a relief in a time where the main question from players in most free-to-play games is, but how much do you actually have to spend? From everything I've seen and heard, Legends of Runeterra is very generous with its card acquisition and has a loyal fanbase because of this. One of the reasons I decided to jump back into Runeterra now was because it's just had its first rotation. This has seemed to shake up the meta drastically, and even though I'm generally in favour of rotations, a lot of the player base seems to be upset. This is mainly because a selection of champions have been rotated out too, which means if you want to play the standard format, you may not be able to use your favourite champion. Although this is no doubt rough for players who are really attached to specific champions, they are still playable in the Eternal mode, and the devs have even said there's a chance that they get to return to standard in some form or another for the future. Even though I'm not a huge fan of PvE in card games, every time the Path of Champions has been brought up in my stream, I have seen people say how good it is. In this mode, you travel through mini-stories and build up your deck and abilities as you go. There seems to be a lot of cool options and items you can get to improve your deck, and I've only seen the initial stuff, so even though this may not be for everyone, it is definitely worth checking out. The competitive scene for Legends of Runeterra seems to keep growing, and most importantly, the game is growing with it. Already you can find in-game tournaments and a fully fleshed out system for 2023. It involves multiple ways for players to qualify throughout the year, and even just having these systems built into the game is a huge step up from other card games, and it looks like Riot wants to continue supporting this far into the future. We'll provide a link in the description below this video as well that goes into way more detail about the 2023 competitive plans. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with Legends of Runeterra and will definitely continue to play it. But I think it's important to whip up a quick pros and cons list as we wrap up the video. So for the pros, we've got unique gameplay. The game definitely plays different than any other card game I've played before. It is very free to play friendly, which I think is a great way to get new players in. The heroes are extremely unique and you'll never really run out of different ways to play the game. And it's also just a great time to dive in due to it pretty recently just having its first rotation. But onto the negatives, or should I really say negative, because there's only real one thing that would hold me back here, which is the steep learning curve due to the sheer number of unique mechanics there are in the game, which, some players may like, some players may dislike. But overall, that is going to be my review of Legends of Runeterra in 2023. Let me know if you went to check it out. I'll see you next time.